All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get a little bit more theoretical. I'll give you some technical diagrams about now the generator. Now, I said yesterday that the generator has positive flip. Every generator, there's this interaction going on. Our entire reality, not just secondary electrical circuit, is a reactance between the metaphysical, the fourth. Now, this is what physics terms. It's the fourth metaphysical dimension of time, and the three physical dimensions of the outer realms of space. Now, obviously, something doesn't have anything you can lay a tape measure on in the outer three dimensions, then it is metaphysical. It has no mass. If it has no rest mass, that means it has no mass. So, if you can't grab a hold of it, pick it up, drop it to the ground, it's metaphysical. Okay. So now, in a generator, in every electrical, whether it be a generator or electric motor, a generator and electric motor are the inverse of one another. Now, with a generator, we have a kinetic input, which is the physical magnetic component. Otherwise known as amperage, around when it's measured. And you see, it's the inductance right around the conductors that's powering the load. The inductance right in the ambient area around the load of the conductors and the load itself that's where the energy's being dissipated at, as force or whatever. And what is happening. See, the reason a ferrous metal has high magnetic inductance because it can store a lot of magnetism within its inner structure, within its intermolecular structure. It can store much of this electrostatic potential, which, when it comes into contact with matter, is knocked out of phase by 90 degrees. When the electrostatic potential comes into contact with the physical matter of the load, depending upon the inductance, that metaphysical potential energy, that voltage, is knocked out of phase by 90 degrees and appears as what's absorbed into the rotor is torque. That's why you always want to use a good ferrous metal that absorbs a lot of the electrostatic potential or difference of potential. And what it does not absorb, it reflects back out as magnetism, and the balance between the electric field or the electrostatic field and the magnetic field there's a reactance. So we have a static component and a rotating component. Now, in a generator, our input is the rotating, physical, magnetic component. Because if it's metaphysical, there's nothing there to spin, ladies and gentlemen. Right? So we have a kinetic input, and that input is leading, and we have a static output in an alternator situation. We have a kinetic input, a physical input, rotating, okay? And that produces, that's the magnetic component. See, there is no, even what you must understand about magnetism, and this goes right at the heart of gravity as well, is you must understand that all matter is a positive potential, which is anchored to the dielectric medium, anchored to the 0 point. Every hollow place in you is what's got you anchored to the medium. That is the dielectric medium. Nothing. So the Earth as well. So there's 2 points of magnetostatic. See, voltage is you have to have 2 points of reference for a voltage. Before you can have a difference of anything, you have to have 2 points of reference. Okay, now the 2 points of reference is between your potential, and obviously the Earth's got a much greater potential because it has a much greater mass. It has a much greater electrostatic potential than the outer. See, there's this balancing going on between, but matter and magnetism, uh, are you'll never see one without the other. Well, you'll never see one without electrostatic. You'll never see one of the three without the other, because I kept going on about how there was no magnetism around the conductors of an open circuit. Well, before we can ever tell that there's a voltage signal there, we have to put a meter on it and there has to be a reactance between the terminals. We have to make physical contact with the instrumentation. So before that point, I don't even think the magnetic field is, until the circuit's put under a load, yeah, we're spinning the mass of let's say, a permanent magnet, which I know in most cases it's electromagnet. But if there's no other point of perspective, there's no magnetic field manifesting. And until it comes under load, there's no magnetism or uh, voltage. There's a potential between the two terminals. There's 180 degrees. Well, depending upon, in a three-phase distribution system. In a three-phase system, your terminals are 120 degrees offset. I'm going to go into that, but just so long as you understand, in a generator, there is a positive slip. Now, when boys go out in the field and they look at the nameplate on the motor and it says 1700 RPM, that is the slip that must exist between the physical rotor and the metaphysical voltage signal, which is coming in on the stator. So we got a static input in an electric motor and a kinetic rotational torque on the output shaft. And the better ferrous metal, the more magnetism, or the more that voltage signal, electrostatic potential, that can be absorbed into the. Now, as soon as it comes into contact with the physical matter of the load, there's a reactance that knocks it out of phase, 90 degrees, and magnetism. And what's not absorbed and dissipated as torque in the rotor is reflected back out as magnetism. It's same potential. It's the same potential energy. It's just 90 degrees out of phase from one another. And, I've explained, I keep saying about nothing, keep talking about nothing. Well, the way to get at the truth, if you're concerned about the truth, and, as far as it comes, it's a negation process to get at the truth on this thing. To get at the truth on God is a negation process. So it's a negation process. So first question you need to ask yourself is there any magnetism around the conductors of an open circuit? Now, you'll know, anybody that's ever checked magnetism around a circuit, you clip the instrumentation around the wire, and that measures the magnetic kickback that measures the magnetic field intensity. But so there are no things. I keep talking about the nothing, the great nothing. What do I mean by that? What do I mean by the void and the dielectric medium? What we look out and observe is empty space, black, nothingness, where there is no time. It's metaphysical. That's where your thoughts exist. It's where, where's that signal going? That signal leaves that dipole antenna. If there ain't no matter there ain't no. If there's no matter, if there's no wires carrying, there's no magnetic component. So that is instantaneous action at a distance when we have resonance. There's electromagnetic resonance between the two antennas. By every car radio has an LC circuit. An LC circuit is a capacitor and a coil, and obviously, to get in tune, to tune in to the broadcast of the signal, as a matter of there's the capacitor is adjustable. And I showed you a good linear example of how space and time are essentially linked. Right here, I've got it demonstrated right here in a single phase motor once again. Over on this side, see, we've got, now this is a portable generator. We got a single phase generator right here. Now, direct dead center of the windings right here. See, this is one winding. They're just 180-degree phase. You know, they're 180 degrees in phase here. This is an in phase displacement on the same axis because it's 180 degree displacement. 180 degrees is directly opposite. It's on the same axis. So that's what we have here. Okay, on a single phase generator, portable generator. Okay, so well, we can't get 360 degrees rotational torque out of it. We cannot create 360 degrees rotational torque with a single phase supply because we only have 180 degree in phase displacement. We have to have an in phase voltage between L1 and L2. We don't have a phase to phase voltage. We have to have phase to phase voltage between these windings to create that phase angle kick that's required for 360 degrees of rotation. Now, there must be this lag in an electric motor. The rotor, the donkey must stay a certain distance behind the carrot. And if the donkey ever catches up to the carrot, there's zero torque on the rotor, as I said. And if the donkey begins to outrun, now in a motor, if the rotor outruns the stator's RPM, then the stator will start collecting energy, or back EMF, and it will become a generator. Now in a generator, the kinetic component, the magnetic component is the input. Right? We have a magnetic physical input, kinetic. We're spinning, right? And then we have a static output on an alternating current generator, or any type of electromagnetic induction. Well, no, because we can use slip rings and it can be collected on the armature. But in example of an alternating current generator, we're rotating a magnetic field with respect to stationary winding, stationary conductors. And, you know, obviously, the more times we coil, you know, I told you what an electromagnet was. An electromagnet is you know, if you can imagine having a 300 foot of energized wire running in a straight trajectory, well, that wire running in a straight trajectory has just a little bit of magnetism manifesting around it. Right? Well, if you take and coil that wire at 300 foot that was running in a straight trajectory, if you coil it and you compact it in about 2 foot of space, then you've created a stronger magnetic field by combining all that, you know, in less three-dimensional space. It's a compression of coherent matter. You compress coherent matter to create. That's what an electromagnet is. Excuse me. So, as long as you understand that the nameplate, you know, it will say 1700 something, but actually the synchronous speed, the speed of the stator speed. Now on a motor, the stator is the input. The input is metaphysical on a motor. Right? We have a metaphysical input on the stator. And in a motor, it's exactly the opposite. We have a physical input and a static output. And the physical input has a positive slip in a generator. It's outrunning the static component, and thereby a voltage is being induced. We have a positive slip in the generator. The rotor is outrunning. I don't know if you can see this. The rotor is outrunning the stator. And when it goes past a little bit, there's a voltage induced right here. So we have a physical permanent magnet or electromagnet, whatever. That's the input. That's the kinetic input. Okay. And we have a static output. We're collecting the energy across the static part of the equation. Now, this is an in-phase displacement, however. Right? It's not an out-of-phase displacement. See how we have, this is a 90 degrees. These are the same windings, right? This is the same coil right here. It's just two different poles of it. It's 180-degree displacement. This is 180-degree displacement, and that's 180-degree displacement. And so we have to have two of those to give it that phase angle kick. Right? See how we only got one here? This is a single phase generator. Now with our utility power, that's just one leg of a three-phase system. But still, we only have 180-degree displacement. We have an in-phase displacement. An in-phase displacement will not create 360 degrees of rotation. Okay, now we can go ahead and, why can't we just parallel these windings? See, we have, right here, now this is the motor. We have a physical displacement of the windings. But now, until we run it through this capacitor, the only thing it would do to put these windings in parallel is parallel the phase winding and the auxiliary winding and just run a neutral to both ends. See, this is this end of the coil. Let's say this is A1. Well, no, let's say phase 1 or A1 and A2. And then auxiliary 1 and auxiliary 2. So auxiliary 2 and A2 are going to get a neutral. Right? And now why can't we just parallel A1 and auxiliary 1? Because they'd lock this rotor dead. Because the reason to lock the rotor dead is because we have a physical displacement and have no metaphysical displacement in these circuit feeding. There's no displacement. See, we have to have two different signals here, ladies and gentlemen. We have to have a phase. We have to have a phase angle shift to get the motor started. In order to produce the effect or induce the effect of a phase angle shift, we must have a phase-to-phase voltage between the windings to give it the shift. Alright, so we have a positive displacement and a kinetic input in the generator. The magnetic component is outrunning the electrostatic component. The electrostatic component is being collected on the windings. And the more windings that we have, the more inductance that we have. And that means the more energy that we can store in the outer three dimensions. See, the reason power factor is always charged to industrial places and is never charged to residential places is because industrial places have a lot of electric motors, a lot of three-phase induction motors. And they require a lot of magnetism because that's what gives you torque on your rotor. Is the more magnetism, the better fires the metal. The more fires the metal and the more magnetism that you can absorb into it, the more torque. The more that energy will be converted into a torque, rotational torque. And we can't have the rotation unless we have a phase-to-phase. We have a physical phase displacement, but we also must have a metaphysical displacement. So, anyway, now this done went on for 18 minutes. And so that's enough for this one video. Now there's magnetostatic potential. See, as far as gravity is concerned, ladies and gentlemen, gravity is, why you float away when you go out of the Earth, get away from the Earth's magnetic field? You still got your magnetic field. See, I said all matter is a positive potential. You got your own potential. Now, obviously, the Earth's got a much higher potential because it has a much greater mass, much greater capacity. There's a greater electrostatic potential the Earth has than you. But when you jump off the Earth loses a little bit of its mass. And, when you jump off a cliff, you're accelerating towards the point of zero potential. And, say you're just jumping up off the ground, the Earth comes to meet you back. Y'all meet at the point of zero potential. Now, because the Earth lost your mass as well, so you both meet at equilibrium. The Earth isn't having to move as much as you are, but this is mutual mass acceleration or electrostatic acceleration towards the point of zero potential. It's the same thing going on with two magnets. But the thing I was trying to show you here in this circuit, until this circuit's put under load and there's a reactance with physical matter, this magnetic field over here in the generator ain't even manifest. It ain't reaching out. This is like, imagine yourself riding a merry-go-round. You know, that's centrifugal. That's an example of centrifugal force right there, which is what's going on here. The centrifugal divergence away from, in the outer three dimensions, outwards, and a centripetal convergence back towards the point of zero potential, or back to the nothing, or the dielectric medium. Right? there are no things, ladies and gentlemen. I keep talking about the great nothing and how there are no things. Well, you know, there are no things, there are no nouns. You know, a noun is a person, place, or a thing. Right? And just like Mr. Watts pointed this out to me, that we look at a waterfall. Or not a waterfall. Well, waterfall is an example of it, but a whirlpool. Now, a whirlpool is not a static thing in and of itself. It's a verb. It's something that the entire river is doing. It's just holding form or pattern, shape. It's a continuous flow of water, though. There's nothing static about it. And we're just on a little bit of slower frequency, but we're obviously always shedding new cells and regenerating new ones. We're just like that whirlpool, ladies and gentlemen. Everything is on a frequency. You know, we've got short frequencies and we got long frequencies. We go to sleep and we wake up, and where do you think it is that we're going back to that dielectric medium? You know how that rotor didn't have to deal with time and inertia and all that? Well, we ain't got to deal with it neither when we go back all the way back to dielectric medium. 0 point, undisturbed awareness, you know, undisturbed pond, blue sky without a cloud in it. That's that's what you're going back to. That's what you're pulling back to or retracting back to when you go to sleep. You know, you go to sleep and you wake up. You're aware that you're aware that you slept 8 hours, but you didn't experience no time. You just went to sleep and woke up like that. The reason you didn't experience no time there is because you wasn't in your physical body. You retracted back to the dielectric medium. And so a voltage is points of reference. Right? You have to have 2 points of reference before you can have a voltage at all, because a voltage is the difference of potential between 2 physical terminals. That's a voltage. Or 2 physical anything. That's what gravity is, ladies and gentlemen. You know, gravity is it's the same thing going on with voltage. It's an acceleration back towards zero. An acceleration back to the point of zero potential. To nothing. Well, there is nothing. Nothing that tape measure on in outer 3 dimensions. Now, now that's the very definition of it. That's an unmanifest potential. There's nothing. It's a potential that's yet to actualize. Well, that's energy. When it actualizes, it becomes force. Now, so reason there ain't no, you float around when you go out on a dielectric medium. When we're out in space, empty space, what we refer to as empty space. We're away from the Earth's magnetic field, what they call its gravitational field. It's just its magnetic field. It's electromagnetic field. Well, there's a difference of potential between the top of your head and the bottom of your feet. See, the bottom of your feet and the ground is at the same potential. It's hitting the same potential, and therefore there ain't no force on it. But between the top of your head and that ground, there is force. And that's what manifesting your magnetic field around your body. Now, we're anchored to the medium. All matter is anchored to the medium. And so we got a potential. We got a magnetostatic potential and we got a electrostatic potential. Uh, you know, and so the magnetostatic potential from the top of your head to the ground, there's a difference of potential, obviously, which causes that force. There's a difference of potential between the top of your head and the ground, which your feet are standing on, which causes force called gravity, which causes us to age and causes all kinds of fucking drag on us. That's why we experience time as well. They would be instantaneous action at a distance if not for this fucking drag on us. It's down this, and it's magnetic. It's electromagnetic. It's electrostatic acceleration. It's mutual mass acceleration, electrostatic uh, acceleration. What's going on in voltage, and you know, it's an acceleration back to zero or equilibrium. Now, the Earth's got a greater potential than us. But when we just jump up off of it, it comes up to meet us just a little bit. Because it lost mass when we jumped off of it. So it's magnetic attraction, two magnets. Same thing. It's a dielectric or a electrostatic acceleration back towards the point of zero potential. They're not attracting one another. They're accelerating back to zero. Or back to the neutral point. No point in ether. Nothing. No physical. So we're all, flow this electromagnetic energy. And somehow down here towards the ground, towards the point of zero potential, life can take shape. Some pops up out close down here. The further down you go, seems like the harder material gets. The harder the matter gets as well. Now, I said that the Earth was hollow. Now, I didn't say that the Earth was hollow. There almost has to be, there has to be some unread iron core. There has to be a non-Cartesian or a nothing there somewhere, because that's where everything's going back to. That's what everything's come out of. That's what everything's anchored to. That's what the Earth itself is anchored to. And I don't know about the flat earthers and all this, but I know. Here's how I know the Earth's moving, boys. It ain't static, cause your reason why you can't produce inductance with a direct current. Reason you can't transform direct current, right? Because it creates a static field and there is no changing field. Now, before you can have electromagnetic inductance, you must have a changing electromagnetic field. And everybody pays attention to the electromagnetic field, but there's a dielectric field there as well in a transformer between primary and secondary windings, between the inside of the coil. There's dielectric capacitance as well as a magnetic inductance. There is magnetic inductance and dielectric capacitance. Magnetic inductance is what we deal with as matter. It's what physical matter deals with. And see, electricity don't want to bite us, boys. It don't want to take, it wants to take the path of least resistance home. Water don't want to flow uphill, it wants to flow downhill, but it will flow uphill if it's got to. So, electricity don't want to flow through, it don't want to bite you. And as long as you provide it a path of short circuit, it won't. Now, say you got a wire skin or something like that in metal junction box and it ain't bonded. It ain't grounded. Okay, well, on a 480 volt circuit, the box there'd be 277 volts sitting there looking for a place to go through your ass. If not but for the grounding conductor. The grounding conductor. Green wire, the frame ground. So you got system 0 and you got the frame ground, which is the earth ground. And they are, your system neutral, your system ground, 0 point system, that's fed from the secondary side of your transformer. We don't pick up this other green wire until we bond to the earth at the service entrance. Now, that's neither here nor there. Now, gravity. Reason why you're floating when you leave the earth is because there is no difference of potential. There's nothing to be in difference with. It's just you and a dielectric medium that you're anchored to. Right? Because you done left the earth's fucking pull. You done left the earth's magnetostatic potential. Well, it's actually not static, it's kinetic, but it appears static. It appears to be at equilibrium because we're standing right in the fucking middle of it. And every generator, every generator creates disturbance within the Earth's electromagnetic field, but it just tears it open, and like a piece of fabric. And there's right dead center between the windings. There's the point of zero potential, the null point, the neutral, right? And so we got a lot of different points of perspective. We can look, we can hook a generator up front, depending on the windings. We can do all kinds of shit. Back to gravity and force. There ain't gonna be no force. There ain't nothing for it to be felt again. So our entire reality boils out, sound. The old philosophical question: how many times how many times am I gonna say that before it clicks that when a tree falls in the forest? That old philosophical question: when a tree falls in the forest, if no one's around to hear it make a sound, does it make a noise? Or excuse me, if no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? Does it make no? And the answer to that is no. Because if there's a longitudinal displacement in the open air medium, there's a longitudinal displacement, which is an instantaneous, just like hitting a piece of rebar with a hammer. The disturbance is transferred to the other end automatically. Instantaneous action at a distance, almost. Now sound is not, because there is air, there's gas, there's oxygen there. So there is a little bit of, but it's an inductance. It's a longitudinal inductance. And it doesn't become sound till it comes into contact or has a reactance with your eardrum. Then it's sound. That's when there's sound. Before then, there's just a disturbance in the medium. And, until that's what it is. It's longitudinal displacement, Tesla, scalar displacement, the sun's law. Well, and here's the thing, Ogle. If it's instantaneous action at a distance, if the potential is, then that means the reflection is as well. So it gains both its electrostatic and its magnetic component at the same instance. When it comes into contact with the load, is when you got a voltage there, because we can't tell that there's a voltage signal even there until we discharge. There's potential between the terminals, I guess. But I don't think that magnetic field, if you can imagine yourself on a merry-go-round, you're riding the outer edges. That centrifugal force, that's that magnetic field. That's that matter out on the outer edges of it. Right? Now, if you can imagine say you got a copper bar that's hanging out about 3 foot beside the merry-go-round, around the perimeter of the merry-go-round. You got one, right? And you're riding the outer edges and feeling all that centrifugal force. The closer you move into the merry-go-round, the less force, positive force at least, that you can feel. The closer you move to the center, the steel point of the turning whirl, ladies and gentlemen. But however, so where was I going with this? So the steel point of the turning whirl. the 0 point. And that's magnetic attraction, that's gravity, that's now, oh yeah, so the reason there can't be inductance, the reason you can't transform a direct current is because you can't have any inductance there, because there is no changing magnetic field, right? In an alternating current, we have a field that's continuously, building up to its maximum, collapsing into zero, and then reversing polarity. And it's continuously doing this 60 cycles per second. And that's moving. That's really hard to wrap your mind around how fast it's moving. But anywho, so now, if I was engineering distributed power, obviously you got to leave in a Y. You got to leave in a Y. You got to leave the power plant in Y configuration with the neutral, I would imagine. Now, but let's get back to the transformer. Let's get back to talk about the theoretical. Now, so you got to have this changing magnetic field, right? Well, you know how you're sitting in your car at zero and you don't feel no G-force? And then you can be going down the road at 70 mile an hour. As long as you're steady at a steady pace, you don't feel no G-force either. You don't feel no force when you're sitting still or when you're going down the road at a steady pace. The only time you feel a force is when there is change, when there is either acceleration or deceleration. That's when you feel force, right? And so that is a voltage as well. That is a difference of potential between the physical mass of the car that you're sitting in, you in the car, and the earth. See, you can stand, to retard. Well, excuse me. So, just like that changing magnetic field that is required in electromagnetic inductance, there is also a changing. You can see how you must be changing in when you're accelerating or decelerating. Because the Earth's moving along, right? And when you speed up, you get to a certain place in physical space where you've come in equilibrium with. You've obtained equilibrium between you. You're at equilibrium when you're sitting still within it, and you reach a certain point, a certain physical point down the road when you come back at equilibrium with the field, right? Because you traverse three-dimensional space on the road. So it's a difference of potential. It's it's a dielectric acceleration or electrostatic acceleration back to equilibrium, back to the point of zero potential. That's what's responsible for force. That's what's responsible for gravity. That's what's responsible for electric power or reactance. Reactance is what's responsible for our entire reality, ladies and gentlemen. Just sound. Ain't no sound to this reactance between the longitudinal displacement and the open air medium in your ear. That's sound. Reactance. Okay. So metaphysical, between the metaphysical, what physics calls the fourth dimension of time, but there ain't no fucking time when you're in that dimension. Time don't exist for the metaphysical. Time only exists for the physical. Your spirit and your soul is timeless, whatever that may be. I don't know what it is. I think you can carry energy around. You can carry karma. You can carry, wisdom is another thing you can carry around with you, attached to you. Or who the fuck knows? I'm not giving you a diatribe on God or none of this shit. I'm telling you this. I'm telling you that the great nothing, which is wisdom in and of itself. The void, the philosophical implications of the void. And I'm not going to say how it relates to already said how it relates to Black Rose and what the philosophical implications of it are. Is impartiality. It's 0 point. And, Catholic Church didn't understand nothing. They understood this. They understood the difference between the temporal authorities and the spiritual authority. They did understand that much. That's why their coat of arms has 2 keys in it. And, I can't talk about